And Rick Sanchez joins us. Now I know this has not been the easiest week for you, but you're still smiling.
It's tough. I screwed up, George.
What happened on that radio show?
I was tired. I'd been working 14-hour days for like 2.5 months. I was doing 3 shows. I was exhausted. It was right after the air. My daughter had a softball game I desperately wanted to go to, and I was a little impatient. And I said some things that I shouldn't have said, and they were wrong. And they were not only were they wrong, they were offensive. And people who were offended by it, you know,
people thought they were anti-Semitic.
Yeah, deserve to know that, first of all, that's not what I meant. Second of all, I apologize, and it was wrong of me for me to be so careless and so inartful. But it happened, and I can't take it back. And you know what? Now I have to stand up and be responsible for it, just like I teach my kids.
Where does it come from? Because, you know, some people looked at this and said there's been a pattern here. Ed Koch brought up put a post on Huffington Post yesterday where he brought up an exchange he had with you, I guess, on your show back in a couple of years ago. You're talking about aid to Israel. You're a strong supporter of Israel, but I want to show the exchange here. You also asked Koch, do you worry sometimes that people in our government, and I'll name names, Feith, Pearl, Wolfowitz, Abrams, Crystal, these are guys that were in there fighting Israel's fight inside the U.S. government. Is that a problem? Koch responded, is it a problem for Irish Americans to be supportive of the Republic of Ireland or Lebanese Americans? I'm a Jewish American. Don't I have a right to remember the country of my ancestors?
And he's absolutely right. And he's a good, you know, he was a good man and a fun interview. And I think that was a story we were doing at the time, which was in the news. And I wanted to ask it without being afraid to ask the questions that sometimes people are afraid to ask. And I think we don't do enough of that in our business. And that's, I put a book out that's called Conventional Idiocy, and that's what I write about. That we shouldn't be milquetoasts. We should address real issues. And sometimes I get myself in trouble because I confront these types of issues in this way.
Is your problem with what you said or what you believe?
No, it's certainly not what I believe. I was just being a reporter. I was asking the questions that any good reporter should ask. And the only time, this incident with Jon Stewart is where I think what I was feeling got in the way of what I should have done and said. And that's why I think I'm going through what I'm going through now. It was my mistake. I screwed up. I take full responsibility. It's not CNN. It's Rick Sanchez. Rick Sanchez screwed up. I went in there with a chip on my shoulder. I was a little bit angry. And look, I will be honest with you, and I hope you don't mind my saying this, but I'm just going to go ahead and say it. If you look at the landscape right now in our media, in prime time, there's not a single Hispanic. There's not a single African American. In prime time, hosting a prime time show in the United States, which is 2020. I'm talking about newscasts in cable news. That's true. That's fair. I'm referring to cable newscasts, straight newscasts, not magazine shows. There's not a single Hispanic, a single Asian American, or a single African American.
Connie Chung did have a show at CNN.
There's a lot of people who've had shows a little bit in the past. I'm talking about right now, though, George. And I think it's significant, you know, that we do have some representatives. Well, that's interesting the way you put that. No, I was wrong to say that, and I was wrong to scapegoat Jon Stewart. I was feeling a little bit put out, and I was feeling a little sensitive, and I was looking at the landscape, and I was looking, and I was seeing that, and I externalized the problem and put it on Jon Stewart's shoulders, and I was wrong to do that. And when I called John Monday, and I said, "Why do you always pick on me?" He said, "Because you're the one I like. You're the one I like." I mean, the guy's been so good.
You gave him some material, getting tasered.
Well, but a lot of this stuff, though, it's like he'll criticize, and here's where I think there's an equalization issue that comes in from time to time that it bothered me. And again, I'm not trying to make excuses, but I was, from time to time, let me give you an example. How many feet and how many inches are in 10 meters?
How many feet and how many inches are in 10 meters? What is it, 330 feet?
No, in 10 meters.
Yeah.
It would be 10 meters is like 3, it's like 11 or something, right? And so we come out, anyway, exactly. I got confused. Well, one time I said on television that I didn't know how many feet and inches were in 10 meters, and I was part of Jon Stewart's skit where he had the whole audience laughing, saying, "Look how stupid Rick Sanchez is." So it's almost like if he does a piece on Glenn Beck calling the president a communist, then he has to do a piece on somebody at CNN, and I'm the one he chooses, and then he does that. And I was feeling like, you know, is that really fair, and why is it always me? And I just kind of
So you do have a chip on your shoulder. You said it yourself. Where does it come from? You've been working in the business, what, almost 30 years?
It comes from growing up when I was a little kid, I write about this in my book, Conventional Idiocy. When I was a little kid, my parents were really poor, and my dad once said, you know, my dad was delivering furniture in the day, washing dishes in the morning, delivering furniture at night, and my mom was sewing shoes, leather shoes. And I would work with my dad, and one day we went to deliver furniture, and when we got inside the house in Boca Raton, this very wealthy lady, I said, ma'am, can I have a glass of water? And she said, no, you go out and drink outside in the spigot. Go outside and drink from the water hose. And I asked my dad, why did she treat me that way? She said, because you're in America, and you have to become somebody to gain respect. And it's almost like that story's kind of stayed with me all my life, and I've sometimes felt a little challenged.
Let's talk quickly about your future. Jeff Bukes, the head of Time Warner, spoke about it yesterday.
Would you ever hire him back?
You know, I wish Rick well. He did a lot of good work on CNN, and anything is possible. He's going to have a lot of interest in different channels, and who knows, maybe someday the right place for him would be one of ours.
He says, not now, but maybe someday. Would you go back?
Absolutely. CNN is a wonderful, wonderful organization that treated me well and took care of my family, and I owe them loyalty because they've been good to me. CNN didn't screw up. Rick Sanchez screwed up. Rick Sanchez was inartful. Rick Sanchez said things that may have been offensive. Rick Sanchez unjustly accused Jon Stewart of being something he's not. I learned later that he's the classiest guy in the world when I called him, and I'm the one who needs to be in trouble. Okay. And if CNN ever takes me back, I'd be happy to go back.
You're a stand-up guy to come out and talk about it today. And I think I failed your quiz. What is it?
I still haven't figured.
So it's 33.
I still haven't figured it out. Thanks, George.
Okay,
Don't worry about it.